Take it away, Ted.
All right, thank you. All right, well, thanks so much for being here. And I appreciate my staff showing up in filling up a bunch of seats, but I see that there are people I don't know, which is fantastic. What I hope to do over the next 20 minutes is talk a little bit about the future of life on Earth and how we're going to survive as a species into the next century. And also about Inflection and our vision of AI and why we think our AI is aligned with human interests. We're not going to replace human interests on this planet. So I want to start out by talking about this concept of cognitive surplus. Cognitive surplus is a concept that a fellow named Clay Shirky coined 15 years ago. And the idea behind cognitive surplus was, if you look at the history of technology in the way in which human beings have consumed it, what technology has continuously allowed us to do is spend more of our time doing things we want to do and less of our time doing the things that are necessary to just keep ourselves and our families fed. Well, in the 20th century, that accelerated all sorts of labor-saving devices. But what did we do with that extra time? Well, it turned out we spent a lot of it on entertainment. It was television, and then more recently it's been TikTok. But we do end up wanting to be entertained, and we spend our time being entertained. Now, one of the really interesting things that Clay Shirky observed was that there were these new social platforms that were emerging, which allowed people to collaborate and work together and also have fun. So there was an application that allowed people to fold proteins. And if you have 100,000 people all working on this problem of how does a protein fold, pretty quickly you solve it, and you advance science. And so his idea of cognitive surplus was all these human brains that are watching TikTok, could we get them to do other things? Could we get them to do things that are beneficial for society? And so what I'm going to introduce to you in this talk is a new stage, a new evolution of cognitive surplus. Because technology has gone and taken another step and added machine intelligence to the pool of cognitive resources that we have available to us as a species. And now I think the challenge that we have is a little bit different than the one that Clay Shirky described 15 years ago. Because I think the challenge that we have today is with this enormous cognitive surplus that is now not just human cognitive surplus released by machines doing work for us, but also the machine intelligence. We need to be thoughtful about what we have humans do. And we should be making sure that the AI that we are creating is aligned with our human objectives, our human lives, our human aspirations, and ultimately frees us to do the things that we want to do. So there's a funny meme going around, maybe you've seen it in your Facebook feed or your TikTok or wherever it is. I didn't want an AI that was going to paint for me and write for me while I did the dishes and washed the laundry. I wanted the AI to wash the dishes and do the laundry, right? So let me talk a little bit about this, but first I'm going to mention how we've been working with Intel. So we started our work with Intel in May of last year, and we started looking at it because of the cost and the lack of availability of the NVIDIA chips. All of our software, all of our technology was originally created on NVIDIA, like most AI companies. But we said, hey, what if there was choice in this world? What if we could actually use Intel's chips, not just NVIDIA's chips, to do our work? And so we started that journey. And I'm really happy to say, and by the way, if you don't know the history of Inflection, we have a consumer personal assistant application called Pi, P-I. You can access it at pi.ai on the web, or you can download an iPhone application or an Android application, and they're called Pi as well. And it is a deliriously wonderful experience compared to talking to other kinds of AIs. Pi is friendly, helpful, cracks jokes. It's fun. It's a pleasant personal assistant to have. So we now run Pi on a seamless infrastructure, combining both NVIDIA and Intel hardware. I think we're the only people in the world that are running a massive scale AI workload, serving millions of people every day, by the way. Massive AI workload running simultaneously on a combined infrastructure. And so that's a key technology that we've developed over the last year. We've also worked really closely with Intel to get the performance of our models to actually be on par now with NVIDIA, with the NVIDIA H100 on Gaudi 2s. So not even Gaudi 3. We're just getting to work on even seeing where we can take it with Gaudi 3. We are using the Intel Tiber Cloud. So we actually have a cluster of 512 Gaudi 2s that we're running right now. Some of those are allocated to serving Pi. Some of them are allocated to serving our developer API. So we have a self-serve developer endpoint that you two can go and use. And we're shipping Gaudi to customers. And so Gaudi is showing up in data centers and other colo facilities and running our software. So terrific success in our partnership with Intel. All right, I want to start with just this broad question: how big will AI get? So when you talk about cognitive surplus, so I teed up the concept of cognitive surplus, and I made the claim that machine intelligence is going to be this massive expansion of the cognitive resources that we have as a species. Let me back that up a little bit. So when I look at Pi, and I look at how people are using Pi, they are using it for an amazing array of things in their lives. They're asking it to help them find information. They're asking personal questions. They're saying, "Hey, I had this fight with my spouse. How can I solve it?" I remember one of the first things I used. A colleague of mine said, "I'm feeling really guilty because I'm going to be out late and my spouse is going to be home with the kids, and I want to do something nice. What should I do?" I asked Pi, and Pi came up with an amazing solution. I emailed that to her, and she's like, "Wow, that is so thoughtful. How did you come up with that?" It's like, I didn't do it. Pi did it. So Pi is this fantastic example of how we can augment our humanness with technology. And I think what we should expect is that people are going to be doing this for all of what they do throughout both their work lives and their personal lives. So if I look at how people use it today, the average session length is almost half an hour on Pi. And I'm like, how could that possibly be? Well, of course, there's a huge range, but there's some people that actually talk to Pi for hours. And we did some customer research and talked to people, and then, how is it that you're talking to Pi for hours? And they would say, well, what I do, because also, by the way, Pi has a voice interface, so you're not just typing, you're talking to it, right? So they say, well, when I'm driving somewhere and I'm all alone, I turn Pi on in the car, and then just as if I had someone sitting with me in the car while I'm driving, I have someone to talk to. Wow, what do you talk about? So I talked to a university professor, and he's like, well, I'm driving to school. It's about an hour for me to get to campus, and I'm thinking about my lesson plan, and I'm getting Pi to help me think through the lesson plan. Right? That's the kind of collaboration that you want from a coworker, right? And so my suggestion to you is that as employees, we are all going to be using this technology hours and hours and hours out of our work days, and also when we leave work in our personal lives. And so AI is going to be huge. And the real unlock is going to come when AI really starts doing things for us, not just talking to us. And we're going to talk about that a little bit too. But let me give you some sense of how big AI is getting from the perspective of what the big, by the way, I was a management consultant prior to this, but I worked for Bain & Company, and I could have put up a chart from Bain & Company, but I thought, I'll grab the competitors slide here, so I'm not just shilling my old company. So this is BCG. This is a study that they did. McKinsey probably has a slide that looks like this as well. This is 2,000 companies that BCG went and surveyed. Probably different companies than the ones Bain or McKinsey would have surveyed. They all are saying the same thing. There is a tremendous level of investment by enterprises into AI in 2025. So the black bar there, those are companies that are spending over $100 million this year. And I'll tell you what, JP Morgan Chase is spending over $1 billion. I met with one of the 4 public accounting firms recently who told me that they are spending $20 million a month just on inference, just on tokens, okay? So this is already happening. Every company in the world is trying to figure out what is their competitive advantage with AI, and the money is flowing, and I believe, I am a believer, as you can tell, I believe that this is going to result in a transformative way of doing work. So let's think about this cognitive surplus thing. I teed it up at the beginning. So we're going to increase the brain power available to us in business to an enormous degree. And when I say enormous, we think the cost ratio is something on the order of 100 to 1 already today and growing. That is to say, you can get 100 times the output per dollar spent from AI that you get from a human. Now obviously there are things that humans can do that AI can't do. And that is why it is so important for humans and AI to work together. Why we believe in the concept of co-workers. AI is not a replacement. It is an enabler, an augmenter, an accelerator, or as we like to say, a coworker. Why is it capable of doing that? So there is a whole bunch of tests that we give human beings on different specific areas of activity. So each of those colored lines is a different area of activity. Image classification, visual reasoning, a whole bunch of different things there, right? Now, you will notice that what those lines, by the way, represent is the time it took for AI to reach human level. You'll notice it doesn't go much above human level. Why is that? Because these tests were all designed to test humans. So they don't really test beyond human ability. But we're also seeing that these machines are going way beyond human ability. Right? That there are things that the machines are capable of doing when it is pattern recognition, when it is tracking activities, when it is all sorts of really interesting things that now are enabled by this massive cognitive surplus. And as I said, 100 to 1. So this is actually a study that was done by a company called GAI Insights. They're a research firm out of Boston. And they went into a couple of different business environments. They went into a call center, and we'll talk about call centers in a minute. They went into a wealth management organization, and they started measuring what the reduction in effort by employees who were integrating AI into their work plans, the reduction of effort was at this 100 to 1 scale. So that's the reason why you're seeing so many companies spending so much money as well, right? They're recognizing this is a huge accelerant. It's a really interesting study that just came out looking at companies that are adopting AI versus companies that are not adopting AI, and showing that the companies that are adopting AI are outperforming in their market segments. And so, the interesting thing that means is that actually this increased cognitive surplus is not actually causing people to lose their jobs in those companies that are adopting AI. Why? Because those companies are growing, right? They're consuming all of the cognitive surplus, the machine intelligence and the human intelligence that's available, so that they can grow faster. You know where the job losses are? In the companies that are not adopting AI. Right? So it's not that AI isn't going to displace people, but it's really interesting to start looking at the larger economy and understanding where are the job losses. So let's talk about this call center idea. So imagine you run a large call center. I've done a ton of call center work in my consulting career. And actually, one of the first things I learned when I was working with AT&T, so I'll pick on them, they were a client 15 years ago, so I'll pick on them now. I had an executive say to me, do you know why there is an ambulance in front of every single one of AT&T's call centers every single day? I'm like, no, what the heck's going on? He's like, this is the most dangerous job in America. The problem is you're typically, for a call center job, recruiting somebody in who is probably overweight, probably older, maybe has other kinds of health problems, and they're getting on the phone all day long, and you are yelling at them. Because you're mad about your bill, you're mad about your service being disconnected, you're mad about whatever it is. And so we have heart attacks every day. It's astounding, right? You think about AI is going to take all these jobs away. No, that's actually the good thing that technology has always done, is technology has always actually taken away the most dangerous jobs, or they've reduced the danger of those jobs where we kept people in those roles. Right? So call centers are actually a horrifying place. Now, the other problem with call centers is we don't get the service as fast as we want. We don't get the service when we want. I want to be able to call up Delta Airlines at 2 o'clock in the morning and change my flight. Right? Well, if there's a storm going on, it's probably not going to get my call answered. Right? But with AI, I can answer an unlimited number of calls any time of day or night, and I'm not keeping people up in the middle of the night to do it. Right? So this is a fantastic example where, as I was saying, GAI Insights actually looked at all the tasks that already today AI can supplant in these call centers. And we're not talking about all of these agents being eliminated. What we're talking about is a progression where the most transactional interactions get replaced first. And as the interactions become more complex and more personal, then you need to start introducing people into it. And so you will for a very long time still have some number of people, but it will fundamentally change the role of the call center worker. So the call center worker over time, instead of actually simply following a script and being transactional, the machine will do that part, right? What will allow the call center worker to do is actually handle those cases in which true empathy is required, where you really want to connect with a high value customer, right? And so as we start thinking about how we want to build and deploy AI, again, it comes back to what do we want people to do? So I will tell you, number one on my list is interpersonal relationships. And I said earlier, Pi is a really fun, supportive, it's a great experience to interact with it. But if you say to Pi, hey, do you have any kids? Pi will correctly answer, no, I am simply an artificial intelligence. I don't, it's not possible for me to have children. Right now, you could program an AI to lie, to say, oh, I have 3 daughters and they're lovely, right? What kind of a relationship are we building with our customers, our vendors, our employees if we have the start of the relationship being a lie, right? We want human beings to be in these relationships. We want to have human beings create these connections. And so what we're going to see is, yes, humans will still be involved in services and support, but we're going to re-emphasize a human quality to where we use humans, and we'll let the machines do the transactional work. So where are we in this journey toward AI? So I wanted to introduce this idea from Clayton Christensen. So you may be familiar with his book about the innovator's dilemma, and you may recognize this chart even. Basically what he says is that in every technology transformation, what happens with the new technology is at first, it is not good enough for most things. And then later on, it actually surpasses the earlier technology, right? So the yellow line is the new technology getting better. The blue line is then the old technology petering off in its ability to improve. And what you see is this least demanding customer line and most demanding customer line being moments when that new technology can really start to supplant the old technology. Now, in this case, the least demanding customer is you. It's you as individuals with AI. Like, I bet every single one of you uses AI already. You just take out your phone, even if your work says you can't do it. I've heard so many stories in working with companies all over the world where employees are like, screw it, the rules are stupid. I'm going to get my work done. I'm going to take my phone out and use ChatGPT. Even in big financial institutions, you'd be shocked and scared at what employees in these banks are doing with your personal information using public AI. But it's because they can get their work done faster. Like, it unlocks for them a solution. Now, it doesn't have the security and the reliability and the manageability and the auditability that that big bank needs, and so it doesn't satisfy the most demanding customer. But that's about to change. The unlock here is going to be about agents. And so over and over again, you hear about agents. In 2022, when we started our journey of building Inflection, and we built that first Pi.ai app, the vision was already in place that for AI to truly actually be this superpower, this coworker for each of us, it needs to be able to take actions. And so the ability to be able to do that is built into the way we think about AI. I mentioned we have a demonstration called Insights. I invite you to come and take a look at it. So imagine this. You have data in your business. Right now, if you have questions about that data, what do you have to do? You have to go to a business analyst who has access to that data. That you say, hey, if I needed to replace this part that we buy from China that now there's going to be a 25% tariff on, what other parts might we have that we purchase in other parts of the world that I could replace it with and have a suitable option for us, right? How do you get that answer? You have to have somebody go dig into all the information. It takes days, maybe a week. They come back with a report, and maybe they come back with the wrong answer, right? How about being able to get that answer in 30 seconds? And then if it was wrong, ask again in a different way and get another answer in 30 seconds that hopefully gets you to where you want to go. And how about having that coworker be a trusted coworker because you can completely audit every step of their thinking, right? So we take an English language prompt and we break it down into understanding what the intent of that prompt is, what are the things we need to do to answer it, retrieve the data, analyze the data, construct the graphs, give it back to you. It's a whole series of agentic steps, and then it explains all the thinking that it did to tell you how it's going to do it. You set this up in the system with each of your data sources, and we even help you do the setup. So we analyze your data and say, hey, we think this field and this part of your data means such and such. Your subject matter expert can come in and correct that, fix that, make it work for you. But then once it's set, every employee can now have access to that data. In fact, actually, we're going to make it easy for every employee to build their own agents. So we're introducing something called Inflection Point, which is a way for employees to actually access, not just build their own, but also access the agents that their fellow employees have built. This is going to unlock that cognitive surplus in your organization. So please come visit our booth. Thank you so much.
Woo! Thank you, Ted. My goodness. I've also been inside an AT&T call center, and you're not wrong. Okay, with that.